Welcome back, terrestrials. In this episode, we're doing 1985's Return of the Living Dead.
Where the fuck are we going anyway?
The party!
Video store totals, director Dan O'Bannon. So the budget was $4 million. It made $14.2 million back at the box office, which is really awesome. I wasn't aware of that. Guess how many kills were in this movie?
Infinity.
Let's round up to a nice round number.
Kills, like actual kills on screen, I would say about 15.
5,000. Is there nudity in this movie? Yes, there's so much awesome nudity. All right, let's hop into it. What do you grade this movie?
A+.
Yes.
A+. I would give this an S. But there is a black eye on this movie that came later.
Dude.
There's a black eye on this movie.
Okay. There's a black guy in this movie. Yes, I know, Jerry.
Right. An amazing fucking actor, too. There's a kid diddler in this movie.
Oh, is there?
There is a Nickelodeon kid diddler.
Who is
Take a guess. Take a guess. Which one? Who could be the diddler?
I mean, any of them could be the diddler.
Anyone. So it's one of the punks.
Okay. All right, cool. Let's just move on.
Okay. So it's the Mohawk guy with the big trench coat.
I didn't even remember him.
Yeah.
And I watched it yesterday.
He's the one who gets his head bit in the door.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, he went to Nickelodeon and the Dan Schneider fucking era.
Nick, Nickelodeon.
And got found out and went to jail and got out and went back. They like let him go back
to Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
What the fuck? All right.
And but he's in jail now for
the second
crimes.
time now?
Right.
So that makes it really hard to hold that against this movie. Just like holding Jeffrey whatever against Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Like you can't. I don't know. Personally, I feel like you can't hold it against the movie. It's shameful. It's sad that happens.
Right.
And it's sad that it happens to such an awesome movie. This movie, I still feel like I would have just given it an A+ anyways. I wouldn't have called it an S because S is elite. And this movie is really, really good. And the puppetry and the makeup is fucking phenomenal. It is, I mean, this kind of shit makes you go, was Tom Savini the man? Like, whoever did this,
I don't think it was
like
Savini.
No, it wasn't. But whoever did this is on a level, like, it's baffling.
They made zombies cool.
Yeah, dude. And
they gave them personality instead of like Romero's blue fuckers from like Day of the Dead, you know.
Send more cops.
Yeah.
Send more paramedics.
The one grabs the thing.
More paramedics.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like, this is the first Brains. Like, it's iconic. Like, when I was growing up as a kid, like, zombies were Brains. I mean, everybody remembers the fucking Treehouse of Horror where the zombies are like looking for brains and they go to Homer and they're like tapping around and then they just brains. It's such an iconic fucking, and that came from this movie, you know?
Yeah. I mean, this one definitely set the precedence for so many different things. I mean, again, the puppetry with the lady zombie on the coroner's table.
Right.
Incredible. And we get her explaining why zombies want brains.
What about the pain?
The pain of being dead.
Right.
And that's another thing. Like it leads back to what you said about this being the first. Like, not only does it come from this, it tells you why.
I can feel myself rot.
So
Mm-hmm.
that when you see the next 1,000 zombie movies, you're like, well, I know why they're eating brains.
Yeah.
And this is the only one that they naturally attack the head alone and then the rest of the body. A lot of zombies just attack bodies and then
Right.
that's it. And you're leading away from the brains thing with that. But I don't know, man. The movie is just it's so phenomenal and it takes so many different like even now when you see a zombie movie, it's typically going to be along the same lines of what happens.
Right.
Um they they don't save the day, but they get away to like an island where there's not so many zombies, or they keep it under control to some extent, or they hold up or whatever. These guys like stood no chance against these zombies, and instead of sending in SWAT after SWAT, they just nuked the
Nuked it.
town.
Yeah.
And that again, that's just so much creativity to the movie. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's
It's an end of the world scenario,
yeah, yeah,
and it's better than like leaving happy.
yeah,
Like
yeah, 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 yeah.
it's just this movie basically just rewinds where that damn skeleton comes out of the fucking
Mhm.
ground again. Do you want to party?
Yeah.
um
The thing that I thought was hilarious because it still speaks true to this day, but where he's like, what if the barrel breaks open? He's like, son, this is made by the United States military. This ain't gonna break open. Slaps it and it breaks open. It's like,
Made by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
of fucking course it did.
yeah,
Like, oh man, it's so
yeah,
many good things. Then they go upstairs and there's the half dog on the ground. Like, hilarious. Like, this
yeah.
is great. The thing that I was curious was because we've brought this up a couple different times. Um, these movies weren't comedies in the 80s. These
No.
were these were horror movies. But if you look up any of these movies now, they're all comedies. They're comedy
Yeah.
horrors. So when did that change and what changed? Like this wasn't I don't know that this was ever terrifying. It was just fucking awesome. You know what I
Right.
mean? So but like when did the comedy slash horror come in on all these movies? Because
Yeah.
all these movies that we watched as kids were horror movies.
Right.
Now they're all comedy horror movies.
Right.
Who snuck on all these IMDb's and put comedy on there?
That right there. Basically, I mean, like, because I know when I was a kid, like watching, um, uh, it wasn't Joe Bob, it was a dinner and a movie,
Mhm.
and they were watching The Lost Boys,
Mhm.
and someone on there said it's a comedy, it's not a horror, but it's strictly based in the horror realm.
Mhm.
Okay, vampires but it's a comedy.
Mhm.
And I remember going into the video store being like, I'm looking for Lost Boys. I looked all over in the comedy section, and the clerk behind me was like, the comedy section. And I think that idea where we take horror elements and we say, yeah, they're funny, and someone on television misquoted it and called it a comedy because it's strictly just a horror movie,
Mhm.
depending on, how you look at it.
Right.
Um, but I think that's what happened is that people's individuality, I mean, people basically just came on the line, people just went online and started saying, "Oh, it's funny. Uh Evil Dead 2 is a comedy because the eyeball flies through the sky and puts in her mouth and she goes, "Woo," or like that,
Yeah.
but there's just silly shit in these horror movies, but it's still a
Well,
horror movie.
see, the thing to me is like I feel like at the time of the release of these movies, they were horror movies. But
Right.
since they no longer have the shock and awe, now we see them as comedy.
Right.
in retrospect. So it makes me wonder if in, 10 years or 15, 20, 30 years, whatever, The Conjuring is going to be a horror comedy, or like Terrifier is going to be a horror comedy,
Right.
or, you know what I mean? Like, is this destined to happen to all horror movies because it's
Maybe.
no longer shocking? So now we just find it fun. It's cute. It's amusing.
Right.
So now it's a comedy.
Right.
So
Just
I
because
don't
it's
know.
not like horror movies don't have to be 100% serious. Uh, a la like you look at serious horror movies like Silence of the Lambs, or The Exorcist. Those are very serious horror movies.
Yeah,
But then you have some directors out there that sit there and go, "No, it's silly what we're this horror movie, so we have to throw some entertaining because if it's just a serious movie,
yeah,
it'd be kind of bland. Like if
yeah,
this like you take all that silliness out of this movie and it's just a zombie movie, it's like
yeah,
Day of the Dead or you know, any of
yeah,
those silly, and then we have to find the silly in the movie, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I definitely feel like with the split between Romero and Bannon, I feel like, or Russo, sorry. I feel like Romero went the more serious route,
Mm-hmm.
and Russo was like, "Hey, Dan Bannon, write a really badass zombie movie."
Right.
And he was like, "I got you, dog." And then just like, because they didn't focus on the realm of reality
Mm-hmm.
like Romero kind of stuck to. There was very gritty reality.
Right.
They said, "What looks awesome? What can we do with this puppetry?" Like, because I mean, there were so many different puppets in this movie that looked amazing, including the main zombie that's on the cover of the DVD,
Bar
VHS,
Man.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he looked so
That's a guy
good.
in the costume.
Right. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
okay.
But I'm
Yeah.
I'm talking about like the head that comes out of the ground and
Oh
as like
yeah.
the zombies break loose. And then again they use the same footage at the end of the movie,
Yeah.
where he breaks back out of the ground, or
Yeah.
it's supposed to be somebody different. But then, the puppetry of the woman on the table, like all those things, the dog, all that shit just worked really well, looked really
Right.
good. But then, yeah, also that fucking zombie is like synonymous with zombies. Like he's the best, coolest, awesome looking zombie.
If you're gonna
Um,
draw a zombie, it would be Tarman. It would
yeah,
be that look, that guy down in the basement. And even though he's silly, it's still terrifying because he looks at him and he goes brains, and
yeah,
and then like the way he
yeah.
walks,
The
and
whole
then
like
he
it's like he's
bites.
partying almost. He's just like,
Yeah, like yeah, because he ain't got he's just made of goop.
yeah,
But it's still horrifying,
yeah.
and
And
like
watching
that's
his
where
face like melt off in the tank,
right,
in the container is awesome too.
right, right. And it's just yeah, it's just like once more, like all the boxes check for. It's got some silly shit, yeah, but as an adult, but you throw that on for a little kid.
Mhm.
Don't throw this movie on for
Don't
kids.
throw that little
Yeah.
kid before you throw this movie on for that little
Right.
kid.
Yeah. I mean, before you put, I mean, like a teenager, like
Yeah,
if we were teenagers
yeah. I
watching
mean,
this movie,
yeah.
just like
Uh,
fireworks.
Yeah, well, I watched this movie as a teenager often.
I found this
Um,
too late.
oh, really?
Yeah, I found this like mid 20s.
So I started with the zombie thing. It was like this Dawn of the Dead, the original. Um, and then I started watching them over and over and over again. And the first few times I'd watched it, I was like so young that like Lena wasn't like I wasn't I was like, "Oh, okay, cool."
Right.
And then later I was like, I think I'm gonna go rent that movie for the 15th time."
Right.
Like, but
And
yeah,
now, and now watching it this weekend, just like, mommy,
Yeah,
Fucking,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And she does a great job for what she has. I know
yeah.
that had to have been a difficult shoot for
That
her.
was probably horrible for her.
I I definitely know, like, when she's, I think all in white, I think that's a bodysuit. Like, but it still can't
Yeah.
be comfortable and fucking warm, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I feel
still
like those leg warmers were there because she was actually cold. It wasn't part of her outfit.
right.
Like they were going to have her bare legged,
Well,
but she takes them off eventually. But she wore them for a little while and then took them off.
I know where she runs back to the car, she's drenched,
Yeah.
you know, and you can see breath,
Yeah.
and it's just like, damn,
Yeah.
fucking, and then she so it has to
Not to
suck.
mention that that's probably just uncomfortable to shoot in general because like she's very, very seemingly, I can't speak for her obviously, but
Hmm.
seemingly she's very comfortable naked in movies. And maybe it's just because she knows that's how she's going to catch her paychecks or whatever the case
Right.
is. In a lot of movies we've mentioned before, she gets the joke. This one, she didn't seem like she was getting the joke in this one. She seemed like she was there because they were paying her a bunch of money or some amount of money that made it worth her to her. But she
Right.
did seem awfully uncomfortable most of the time being that naked that much.
Oh yeah,
Like, I
definitely.
think the little dance scene would have probably been fine. But then after that, she's constantly trying to pull stuff over her vagina and like pull her shirt closed and
Yeah,
everything
or
else. And it's just,
kind of
yeah.
walk like
And
that.
then
And,
at that, you're just kind of
yeah.
like, "Ah, fuck. Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's a shame, but
And
uh,
this is the second movie
she
where we
apparently
have,
has no complaints.
no,
So,
haven't read anything.
yeah.
So, but this is the second movie that we've watched where she's butt ass naked, and there's an adult film star on screen with her.
Look where she is and look where Leanna is. So, or
Right, right.
Lena. Sorry, guys. It's Lena.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Mommy Quigley.
Yeah.
Fucking, but what else? What else we got? Did we miss?
Like, let's just talk about the whole entire setting of the movie. It's very simple premises. You've
Right.
got two buildings and about 40 yards between them, I guess, like a large parking lot, Walmart parking lot between them, essentially. Um,
That's a graveyard.
right. I know, but the crematorium inside the graveyard is the second location, and the
Right.
first one is that one, and they're right down the street. They're like right next to
Okay.
each other,
Because I always
because they're
got
sitting in
lost.
front of this one going, oh, he gets off at 10, I'm gonna wait in 2 hours, and then they're like, let's go in that graveyard right there, so it's
Right.
right there. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Because my brain always, because you
Man, what a hideous, ugly place.
I like it. It's a statement.
Come on, let's go. Been sitting here 2 fucking hours.
I was kidding. We could go fool around in there for a while.
You mean that cemetery? Oh!
see them walking through the graveyard to get to the with the rabbit weasels, you see them walking, and I was like, is that place also in the graveyard, or like, why did they have to go through the graveyard to get, the rabbit weasels to the mortuary and shit?
Yeah, they do because they have to come out of the building, go out of the like fenced in parking lot,
Yeah.
and then like when they come out of that parking lot, they make the left, and at the dead end, it's the
See,
graveyard essentially.
yeah, I never put that
Uh,
two and two. My brain
well,
always just thought they were also in the graveyard. their
well,
their
so
establishment was in the graveyard.
like I said, when they pull up in the car to pick up homeboy,
Right.
you see them like looking up this direction at it, and then they go like this, let's go to that graveyard.
Right.
Point is, it's an awesome setting,
Yes.
and everything looks like, the warehouse looks like a warehouse. It's got a few shelves with some things on it. The graveyard looks fantastic. If it's not a real graveyard, I would be shocked. um The crematorium, same thing. There's a chapel there. They hold it's basically a funeral home inside a graveyard, which is weird.
Right.
Whatever. Um, but the atmosphere that they show, like the even though these punks are characters of punks, they still make you believe the era and the time and the slumminess of where they are in Louisville, Kentucky, not New York City. But it all fits well. Like the car, like they're pulling the roof on the car, and he's like, "Roll up the window." I ain't got no windows. Like
Yeah.
this car's all spray painted and shit. Like Brian Barsani drives it.
Yeah.
It's just like everything about the movie. It builds this perfect little universe in this corner of this street, and
Hmm.
it's everything. Like the entire world is right there throughout this movie, and they did a great job at it.
Yeah.
This movie did flawless work in everything except for hiring a pedophile that they didn't know about yet.
Well, yeah,
So
future. Yeah. I mean, I like we said, we can't fault this movie for that guy being an asshole later on in
right,
life.
right. But
So,
you did knock it from an S to an A plus because of it. So you did
yeah.
fault it. Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's an incredible movie. I mean, it's it's definitely Mount Rushmore of zombie movies.
I believe so. I believe it's one of the top. If
Yeah,
I had to okay, everybody puts the Romero three, the Romero trilogy. So that's Night of Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead.
yeah,
Whereas me, I'm going Night of Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead, and then
yeah,
Shaun of the Dead are
yeah,
like the three
yeah,
zombie movies
yeah,
you need to watch. Like,
yeah, for
you want to know
sure.
what a zombie? Those three movies are
Yeah,
a holy trinity of zombie movies because all three of them incorporate the same idea with something new, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And
And I think that all of those movies are a good example of, like you said, something new because none of them are exactly the same. Dawn of the Dead, I would put in there as well. And so it's like, two Romeros and then two not Romeros. And it'll give you a nice round flavor of zombie movies. But it's funny because everything is so ridiculous in this movie. It's so exaggerated, but also everything's kind of like logical too.
yeah,
Like first, these two guys, they wake up, they're going to handle everything by themselves.
yeah,
And then they have to call their boss because the guy gets out. They couldn't quite kill him, but they cut his head off. Um,
it worked in the movie.
right. Yeah, exactly. I wonder if that was like a shot at Romero or something.
No,
But
because they even said that. You ever seen that movie Night of the Living Dead?
yeah, yeah,
I got one down in the basement.
yeah, yeah,
They're trying to say that that is just it's a movie, but it's real. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
at the
yeah,
same time, theirs is a real event. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. I feel like other movies have done that too. I can't remember, but yeah, so everything's very logical. They take it, they just try to incinerate it to save the guy's business
hmm
and also like get it over with, get it done with. And then they end up waking up every dead fucking person in the area
yeah,
by accident. And then they just try to board things up. Like everything is logical, but it's also so outrageous. And you forget that like the three older men in this movie, one turns to the zombie, the other two are like, towards the end of the movie before they die.
right.
Or the one guy's still alive technically until the new
Technically, well,
kids.
no one's
Well,
alive
yeah,
after
until
the
the
nuke,
new
but
kids. But all these guys are making rational, logical, like grown man decisions as where everybody else is like, no, we gotta make a run for it. No, we
yeah,
gotta like run back to the warehouse where it all started. Like it's like, what? No. And as far as the colonel goes, I understand they had to show him because if he would have come out of nowhere, even though like that whole scene, like it's pork chops. I had pork chops for lunch. Who the fuck has pork chops for lunch? You fucking asshole.
yeah,
Like what the fuck are you
See,
doing?
but that's where the joke comes from. Like, who the fuck has pork chops for
Yeah,
lunch?
yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean,
if they
pork chops.
didn't
I had
do
pork chops
that,
for
like,
lunch.
yeah, if they didn't show him being a piece of shit to his wife, um, then when he comes up to like fire the nuke, where the fuck this guy come from? Who the fuck is
Right,
that guy? Why is he authorized to do it? You know what I mean? So,
right,
and
right.
then, yeah,
It's just
I mean,
cold. I'll say this movie also, I think, if anything, the most terrifying thing, the true horror, okay, in this movie, number one out of anything, is this is where I learned about skeleton farms in India
yeah, yeah,
with perfect teeth. And
yeah.
my brain goes, holy shit, yeah, fucking all skeletons that you see in like movies and TV shows, like at a certain point before they were plastic,
Yeah.
there were real people skeletons.
Which
And
is funny. Go
yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
but I was just saying, but with the perfect teeth thing, because to display one of those things, and like some of them, yeah, you see they have missing teeth, yada yada. But a lot of those skeletons you see, like, go back in the 1970s and 60s or the 50s, and if a doctor has one of those skeletons, wow, they have beautiful teeth. It's like,
Which is funny because this movie talks about the body farms in India and the perfect teeth when they're very clearly using dollar store skeletons and putting them in the box.
oh yeah, man,
You
well,
can almost see through the skeleton how thin a plastic that
yeah,
skeleton was. But they're talking about real skeletons and body
right.
farms. Like
Because
that might just been a little secret PSA.
I know that there are 3 movies that I've watched or television shows after that fact entered my brain that date the right time. And I'm just
Poltergeist.
staring. Poltergeist is one. Yeah. But the TV show MASH,
Mhm.
they have a real skeleton and you can see the skeleton.
Yeah.
Like it's a skeleton. And it's like, holy shit. Fucking where how much I wonder how much you pay, like you get being like, yeah, but when you die, we get your skeleton.
All
Fuck.
right, that's Return of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm. But it's good because usually our videos end on like half conversation.